Well, I've got a couple housekeeping things to go through here. If you'd want, we can start with our prayer. We usually like to do that as Republicans. We believe in religious liberty here. So if you bow your heads, please. Dear Lord, thank you for your countless blessings, for having so graciously bestowed upon us, especially this technology that allows us to gather here today. Grant us the wisdom to know and to do your will in all things. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. And then let's see, are there any members of the armed forces with us who have a mic? I bet you have Walter. Walter, you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Can everybody see my flag back here?
Yeah, I don't see Walter's on though.
Let's see.
You ready?
Let's do it.
You ready?
I'm ready.
I
I pledge
pledge
allegiance
allegiance
To
to the flag
to the flag
of the United States
of America,
and
to
to the republic
for which
for which
it
stands
stands,
one
One
nation,
nation,
Under
under
God.
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
and justice for all.
and justice.
That still is a little odd for me, out of sync. It's much better when we gather together in person. Okay, Marion has entered. Marion, can you hear us all?
Hello.
Marion, very
Yes.
good. Thank you for joining us.
I'm just going to be still and listen.
That's fine. If you have some questions, there's a little chat bubble in the upper right-hand corner. You can type those in. I'm going to mute everybody's mics at first so we don't get too much echo. But then go ahead and type your questions in and I'll try and get them. I'll ask them to Bobby, unless we can unmute mics on and off as it works out. So let's go ahead. I'm going to do that and I'll get everybody muted here. And then I'm going to unmute Bobby. Bobby, I think, what about me? Okay, I'm going to give you the signal. Go ahead, Bobby, and start with your opening.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you all for taking the time to come on to this call to ask questions. Hopefully, I can clear up some things on people's minds, as well as put some people's minds at ease about why I think there's a change in leadership needed, and why I think that I have the skill set that's necessary at this juncture to help get the party to where we all think we need to go. With that, I just want to make sure that the key things that I wanted to accomplish, and everybody should have received the mailing. And this is in no particular order. These things will be done simultaneously. But I want to work with everybody in the Republican Party, as well as expand the number of PCs. We need to probably quadruple it to up to 400 for the population size, and to actually properly cover the amount of people in the area in the Kane County. So that's extremely important that we figure out a way to raise the number of people that are involved in a leadership perspective, creating a rebranding campaign and monthly newsletter so that we can restore citizenship, as well as people being engaged in the GOP, focusing on helping the candidates from the central committee versus having them all do things on their own. I think we waste a lot of time and money and energy, frankly, on the candidates' part, that we're not leveraging the resources of the entire organization. Opening up the party to more women as well as minorities. We have a 7% deficit right now. We have 7 fewer women than the Democrats for a similar number of people involved in the party. And I think the numbers are even worse if you look at the leadership positions with regards to the chairs and treasurers, as well as the secretary at each township on the Democratic side. And that needs to get resolved long term if we're going to truly expand the tent. and putting together an advisory committee. There's some people that are concerned that, who's this Bobby going to come in and do all this stuff. And, I think there's a little bit of a misconception about what a turnaround person is. A turnaround specialist is someone that comes in, identifies who the strongest people in the organization are, finds out what their skill set, where it's most badly needed, to get some points on the board, and to get people excited and motivated again. So clearing out, in a sense, being very Republican, clearing out some of the rules and regulations that no longer serve the organization very well, and talking that through and figuring out what we need to change structurally. And also figuring out what are people seeing on the front lines that they're bringing to the leadership that we can execute on and implement. And it doesn't have to be something that's done immediately or across the entire organization. You try different things in different parts of the organization, and then if they work, you run it. You basically expand it and then deploy it throughout the entire organization. That entire process is very time consuming. That's why a lot of people don't do it. You need to be able to think across a lot of different structures and a lot of different moving parts to do it. And it just so happens that my skill set that I've accumulated professionally over the past 25 years fits very well into this type of situation on a couple fronts. One, on the deployment of capital, both financial as well as human resources. And then the second, with regards to knowing how to realign the incentive structure to get people excited and motivated. And there's somebody that I asked to come onto the call, and they've known me 20 years. People have kind of asked, how is Bobby? What's he like? And what's it going to be like to work with him if he were to win the position? And maybe this would be a good time, Patrick, if you can maybe turn on Lou, who's known me, and he can kind of tell what it's like to work, what I've been like, I guess, over the past 20 years, because he's got to see me develop professionally as well as on a friendship level throughout my career.
Go ahead, Lou.
Okay, can you guys see me okay? I don't know if I did this correctly.
Your camera's not on, but we can hear you.
Is that on now? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on. My name's Lou Moulet. I've known Bobby for 20 years. We started out as neighbors. We became very close friends, which we are still to this day. And now we are actually do business a little bit together. But I'll start with Bobby on a personal level. He's a great friend. He is a great father to his children, his 4 children. He's a great husband, and he's just a good family man. I'll start with that because I've known him, I've seen him, and I've interacted with him, and I've known him in that family dynamic, and he is a great family man. He's very, very caring for his children, as for his family, his parents, his siblings, and that's one of Bobby's greatest strengths. He has many, but he's a great family guy, and I would like to start with that. He's a very caring person. He cares about people. He is always putting other people's needs and other people ahead of himself. He's a very selfless person in that regard. As far as work, as far as leadership, he's a great leader. He's a very calm person under pressure. Him and I work together. He does some financial work for me, and in the very recent market up and down, where I was kind of freaking out about a lot of things, which I'm sure a lot of us are or were. He was very calm, and he was just a very calming voice, and he was just very stay the course, was very confident. And I think those are some of the skills that make him a very good leader. I think he would be great being involved in this organization. I think he's very passionate. He's very passionate about politics, and he's very passionate about helping people. And I think that those are some of his best traits.
Excellent, Lou. Now, and some of the things you worked with Bobby, you mentioned about 20 years. Do you have any experience where you saw him in a bad light at all, or you think that those were all positives?
No, I think they're all positives. I honestly have seen him, do things. I've seen him for his family, for his father-in-law when his father-in-law was ill. Things that I thought, wow, that he's a really good guy. Like that, things that most other people wouldn't do. When his father-in-law was diagnosed with cancer, Bobby was there to just comfort him. He brought him in to live in his home, took care of him best he could to make his last months alive, to make him as comfortable as possible. He's really done a lot.
Excellent. Very, very wonderful testimony there, Lou. Bobby, do you have any questions maybe you think you can add?
In the south. Piton is in the central portion of the country. And so this was extremely unusual. And the fact that it might have started close.
There we go. I think we had somebody else who was on there. Let's see. There's Bobby. Bobby, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, other than thank you, Lou. One of the concerns that people have is they don't really know me. I've only been out in this area for about 7 years. Growing up and being born in Chicago and then growing up by O'Hare. It's different than living out here. I tell people all the time, and I'm not joking, living out here is like being on a permanent vacation. Relative to city living, it's a lot less stress, and it is nice, and it's a much nicer place to raise a family than the city. There's no doubt about that. And so, no, I appreciate you taking the time, to share some kind words and explain your perspective as to what you've seen. So thank you.
Sure. And I think I finally got the webcam working. I think everyone can see. I finally figured it out after I gave all that.
Lou's been grounded. He's a pilot for he's a pilot for United that was flying.
Pilot for United Airlines, yes.
Yeah, to Asia.
Not a lot of flying right now. I was doing a lot of Asia and a lot of Europe flying, and yeah.
Lou,
hopefully we get things back.
I have to hook you up with a guy that I follow on the internet. Another pilot for United is Juan Brown with the Blanca Lirio channel. So I'll remember to send that to you. But
okay.
I also have to add that, we asked you this morning. I had this idea last night to say, Bobby, if you could get somebody to come on and give a reference for you, and you came through it this last minute with late notice, and we really appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Sure. Anything. Bobby's a good friend of mine. So like I said, we go back a while, and this was important to him. So, I make it a priority for me. I know he would do the same for me.
So thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Lou.
Thanks.
Okay.
You're welcome.
So I think I'm going to ask a question or two that haven't been asked yet, that we have other people have asked these in other town halls. And so I thought we'd start with those. One of the big things is you're an outsider. You're brand new to this organization, and a lot of people are concerned about how you could just suddenly get elected PC and want to rise to the leadership position after just being elected. And I know I had something to do with that and approaching you and asking you to do this. So I feel partially responsible for that abrupt entry into this this campaign. And perhaps you can explain a little bit more why you agreed to go forward with this.
Sure. So there's an analogy, and I think maybe it's one of Aesop's fables, and I'm not 100% sure, but it's been with us for a long time if it is, which is everybody's probably heard about a frog in boiling water, that if you take a frog and you put it into a pot and you raise the temperature just a degree or two, they'll stay in that pot and they'll just be very comfortable, and it's getting warmer and warmer, and before you know it, they boil over and die. And one of the reasons why outsiders are effective coming into organizations, especially some that have reached a point of status, or things just aren't working, or the passion's kind of gone, where people are checking out, is because because they don't have any attachment to the water. Like in terms of the environment, I have attachment to the values. So my attachment is even though I'm an outsider, I'm an insider when it comes to the value system. I live these values. I've lived them my whole life. Like I said before, I have a signed invitation by Reagan in my office. My son's middle name is Reagan. I probably read 10 books on him. I know more about U.S. presidents than, I don't know very many people that know more about U.S. presidents and what they've accomplished than me. And it just happens to be a hobby of mine to read about this republic and how great it is and how it's structured. I reread the Constitution multiple times a year because it's fun for me to do that. I don't expect anybody else to do it. And so, Republicans believe in the republic. They believe in the Constitution and making sure that we don't have our rights taken away from the minority. And that's what, that our rights are not given to us by our government. They're given to us by God. And we don't live as though we want other human beings or spirits under our thumb. And the Democrats do. And so this is a constant battle or struggle in humanity. And, it's been very clear since as far back as I can remember that the right part of the right side of this argument is the side that we're on. And, and this is why the United States has been as successful as it is. We've outgrown the world sevenfold in the 20th century. We still dominate the planet. 60% of the world's currency is the U.S. dollar. We're more creative as a group relative to other nations because we attract the best and the brightest of planet Earth. Why? Because we protect your property rights. We protect your intellectual property. We have the rule of law. There shouldn't be two sets of rules. And that's how I would address it in terms of being an outsider. You need to focus. I would say you should focus on what are the values. If I was an outsider with the values, then the response would be very well warranted, and I should be bounced out immediately. I shouldn't even be shown in the door. Well, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, I've got another question here. If you could go over the 5 points that that for making Kane County great again.
Sure. Well, the first thing is to make sure that we raise the proper amount of resources so that on the executive level of the organization, we can support the townships properly with the right materials, with the right systems. And that's really key, is to create a unified message across the organization and actually have the infrastructure to make that happen. Having an office would go a long way, and that's one of my priorities, would be have an office where people from across Kane County that are in the party can go and work and you almost use it like a co-work space and brainstorm and come up with ideas of what we can do to win in various elections across Kane County. The other thing is having an advisory committee. There's a lot of institutional knowledge that we're missing out on, that people that left the party or people that are in leadership that have moved on, they're not engaged because we don't have the right structure for them to be engaged. I envision an advisory committee where people might rotate for 2-3 months, and maybe they can come to 3 meetings and then they rotate out and we bring in somebody else, and they can be a critical voice in the room that's not afraid to kind of hurt people's feelings if an idea doesn't sound as though it might work. because they have some experience from different times of when it did work or didn't work, and maybe we tweak it and pick up from lessons that they've seen firsthand of what has worked. Fundraising to help candidates. Right now, there's no brunches, there's no membership drives, there's no golf outings. Now, granted, it just so happens everything's shut down right now, so there wouldn't be any of that anyways. But the problem is, we don't create a citizenship, so to speak, among Republicans in Kane County. We should have people that love seeing other people of like-minded values and beliefs, and going to picnics, going to zoo events. Maybe maybe there's a zoo event to Lincoln Park Zoo or Brookfield Zoo as a group. Whoever can go can go. This idea that you don't do anything unless everybody's there or unless this circle of friends is there is lame. Open up the invitation, see how many people can go, and whoever can go. And that's okay. Form some new friendships. This idea of, that it has to be perfect is silly. Get everybody more involved, and it'll take on a life of its own. A monthly newsletter is critical, and the newsletter I would try to do it through an app so that it can be pushed through to the person's phone, that it doesn't get lost in the clutter. Obviously, we can do a PDF version as well, but the idea of communicating with the base is really critical, to do it through a way that it doesn't get lost in 2,000 emails in your inbox. The other thing is focusing on the candidates. Right now, the value system of Republicans in Kane County, as well as across the state and the national level, we should have a unified voice. And we don't have to agree on every single point, but we do have to agree on the core Republican principles. And a real easy way to see how we should message to the public so that there isn't confusion is to have 2/3 majority on the certain issues that we vote on as a party. So I wouldn't be like, well, this is the message and this is what I think we should do. It'd be like, look, I think we should focus on protecting the U.S. Constitution, limiting the size of government, but putting numbers to it. Well, how big should the government be? Federal spending used to be 4 cents of every dollar 100 years ago. Now it's 22 cents. So how about we say, let's figure out, let's cut the size of the federal government 25%. Let's draw a line in the sand of where we stand. And, state and federal government used to be 8 cents of every dollar. Now it's 24. Maybe we should say, let's cut it by a third and get it to double what it used to be. But we don't do that. We just talk in pie in the sky numbers that people don't relate to. Put it in dollars and cents. Before you used to, every 12 cents or 1/8 of the time that you worked, 1 hour of every 8, the government got, local, state, and federal. Now it's 1 out of every 2 hours or 2.3 hours. So anyways, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to get to a question from Marion Bond here. What is your view of the organizational tree for the Republican Party in Kane County?
Well, right now, we have a structure in place. And this is, there's been a lot of talk about me going after the leadership. And, and I know I kind of highlight some things on purpose because I want people to think about it. And I want some people to get angry about it, because the anger should turn into, well, why is he doing it? And what does it mean? Otherwise, because if I didn't care, I wouldn't tell you guys anything. I wouldn't even be involved, and you would never hear from me again. And when a customer doesn't come and tell you what's wrong as a business, you go out of business. I mean, anybody in business knows that. It's the customers that complain that you want to talk to the most, because they're the ones that are going to tell you things that nobody else wants to tell you. And this idea that if somebody speaks up, you hammer them down or try to block them or try to say that they don't belong here is absolutely ridiculous, and it's toxic. But going to the leadership point, I want to tell a quick story to talk about this, because it ties into the organizational structure.
Okay,
Okay, I'll be super quick. So as you guys know, I'm the last of 10 kids, and my parents, they refused to take gifts from me and my siblings, even as we started working and making money. And for years, I didn't know how to talk to my mom about it. And I kept trying to give her stuff just, because I'm her son, and she did a great job, and I was happy, and I wanted to share some of my fruits of my labor, and she refused to accept it. So then one day I basically said, look, can you tell me why you like giving gifts? Why do you like giving gifts to the kids and the grandkids, and how does it make you feel? And I went through and I had that dialogue with her, and I said, now I just want you to imagine for a second that, I just refused to accept the gift from you. And then everybody else in the family didn't want your gift either. How would you feel after a while? Would you feel pretty lousy, denied that joy? And then she didn't say anything, and that was the last time we've ever discussed it, because she started to take gifts from everybody. And going to this leadership concept, when I look at taking this analogy and I think about the leadership of Kane County right now, we have a shortage of people. We need at least 4 times as many people as we have. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. I mean, to properly run this organization, we need 400 people involved in leadership in the PCs, and we have just over 100. And so I understand how, Ken feels he needs to do 3 jobs, and he's got to be trying to get on the board, and he needs to be the chair of St. Charles, and he needs to try to be the chair of this. And then we got Terry, who's the auditor, and then he needs to be the chair over in West Township, and then he also needs to be the treasurer of the entity. And my response to that is, you're stealing the ability of other people in the organization to develop and become the next leadership, and to develop, and maybe you should change that role to being a mentor. But this idea of hoarding the positions or feeling as nobody else is good enough, nobody's ever going to be good enough. You got to get them started. And this idea that we don't go and attract people to say, hey, if you come here, you're going to learn how these other skills, and when you take these skills and you leave this organization, maybe you can go help run a school board and get our values across. Maybe you can go work at other local levels of government, and then you understand how this whole system works. And that's what we're missing. We're missing the pipeline. We don't have a pipeline. We don't even have the pipe built. So it's like, and so I understand, and I feel for why they're doing it and why they're hanging on, because they might look at the same data that I'm looking at and be like, well, we can't leave because we need all these people and we're the only ones that know how to do it. And then at the same time, it's that attitude that keeps everybody from wanting to get involved, because people will surprise on the upside if you give them the opportunity to prosper, and you change that mindset of having to do everything to delegating and mentoring. And that's what this organization is lacking on a massive scale. And you guys, once again, everybody who's been here for years, maybe you don't see it as much as I do, but for me, it turns my stomach because it's so glaringly obvious that this is what needs to be corrected as soon as possible. There needs to be more mentorship and more more development of the next generation. And frankly, we need more women. We have a deficit. If you compare us to the Democratic Party, we should have at least 7 more PCs that are women just to be even. But then if you look at the leadership of the Democratic Party, most of the leaders in those top positions, I think over half of them are women. And then all of a sudden, Gary, no offense to you, but, I see you throw your hat in the ring, and it's like, okay, here's a white guy. I happen to be a white guy. And then we got Terry, the white guy. Then we got Ken, the white guy. And it's like, okay, so we have Nicole step up, and she wants to be the secretary. And all of a sudden, it's 3 white guys at the top. But yeah, we're all about diversity, and we want to go after the Hispanic community in Elgin, Dundee, and Aurora, where we're missing 57 out of 63 wards in Aurora, and then we're missing 2/3 of the people basically in Dundee as well as Elgin. And then I'm like, what? You can't. You gotta lead by examples. You can't sit there and not put the right. Try to push along some people along the way to encourage other people to come into the tent. And that's my gripe. So if you want to know what my gripe about the leadership, that's it.
Okay, we're ready to go for another question. Hey, Gary, if you want, go ahead, type your question in. I'm going to ask Bobby if you can do a quick one here. Will you help King County if you're not elected? That's a big one that gets asked a lot.
I'm saying
I'm just
I
real
gotta
brief.
tell you, yeah. With regard to will I help? Uh, what are you guys? There's going to be some people that are not going to like me to be around, and there's going to be some people that are going to love it. And I could tell you right now that I talked to my wife. You guys are going to see me for a very long time now that I've waken up and realized how much help the party needs. Frankly, I think I had a bias, like a lot of Republicans do, in the more that aren't involved in the party. They're Republicans. A lot of business owners, everything else, they know what's going on. They're taking care of it. I don't need to be involved. And there's a lot of people like me that think that way, that are like, you know what? I don't need to do it. They can do it. They're competent and they have the skills. But there is a skills deficit. We need more people with skills that we're lacking involved. And frankly, we just need more people, period. So even if everybody has the skills we need, you can't work 4 times as much as an average human being. It's just not possible.
Right.
We're gonna have things slip through the cracks.
Bobby,
Go ahead.
Mary Bond has another question, and then we'll go to Gary's question. How would you recruit more people to run for PC positions?
Well, if I have the honor of becoming chair, I could tell you right now, I'm gonna go on a speaking tour. and
Okay.
and some of it's going to be digital, and some of it, once things open up, I'm going to like make myself available to every township. Like I'm going to do like one a month, maybe sometimes I'll do two. I want to create events where we have an event every 2 weeks across the organization and have people share their list to encourage people to be more social across Kane County by doing a revenue share, so that it's like, oh well, people don't want to go to my event because they went to Elgin and I'm in Geneva. I want to end that, and you can end that through the right incentives. You could do a cost plus model where it's like, you know what, you're going to go out to dinner, you might as well spend $50 coming here, and why don't you give the Republican Party 15 to 25% above, and then if you're not in that township, they get 60% if you went to that township, or 75%, and then the township that they're from, they get a rebate of 25% of the amount above the cost plus. So there's ways you can create this, just crush these incentives that are causing people not to want to cooperate. But it's normal not to want to cooperate if you feel like you're losing out. But if you can restructure it that everybody wins, it's exciting, because then all of a sudden you get people that are sharing ideas from across the county. Why don't we imagine if we had a nice office and we had to expand it to have socials there? Or how cool would that be? We open up the office at 1 o'clock on a Friday. People kind of, whoever's taking a half day can go there and hang out and, I don't know, have a couple cocktails and talk. Anyways, there's a lot of fun we can have with this if it's set up the right way. And right now, I know it's the same message. Oh, it's going to cost money. If you come up with the right structure, it'll pay for itself. I'm not worried about. People don't want to pay if they're not getting value. Go ahead.
Okay, I got another one for you. This has been asked quite a few times, and I've experienced this in my as Grand Knight in the Knights of Columbus. Is how do you motivate and manage unpaid volunteers?
Well, the most important thing to do, and this is for unpaid as well as paid, but with unpaid volunteers, you really have to do an analysis of is what is hold on a second. My camera's acting weird. Can you guys see me? Okay.
No, you,
Okay,
there you
so
go.
yeah. So right now we don't really have a detailed workflow process mapped out across various functions in the organization. And if you map out how things can be done in the most productive manner possible, you can assign a value to what each activity is worth to you. Like for example, you know, I love working on math problems. So if Kane if Kane County GOP was like, Bobby, we need you to do something, but you get to pick whatever it is that you love doing, I'd be like, give me math problems, give me things to solve with regards to examining financial statements, and I could work on that for hours on end. I love looking at numbers and finding patterns and deciphering issues that exist with those numbers. And if you said, you know what, we want you to just put these I don't know, we want you to I'm just trying to think, we want you to just do nothing but labels, right? And I'm going to be like, I don't want to donate time for just doing labels. So then the question is, well, it's important we get those labels done. That's the next thing. Everybody's got to do some of these labels. And my attitude would be, well, what does it cost to pay someone to put labels on? Does it cost $10 an hour, $15 an hour? Can we get some interns maybe, or do we outsource it? And then what's your time worth? Well, if you make 60 grand a year, $1,200 a week, that's $30 an hour net. You got to be bringing in $75 an hour of value to your company that you work for. So if it costs more than $75 to put labels on, it's silly. You're underutilizing that person's talent if they make 60 grand a year. Yet you should outsource it, and you should find interns or college students or something that want to just be involved and be around people that have these values and beliefs. So part of the best thing I can think of for volunteering is you want to have the volunteers do the things that you can't outsource. You want them to have the conversations. You want them to go and meet with people and explain why they need to get more involved and why they can't passively sit there and just think that nothing's going to change. If you're 90 to 95% of senior citizens in this country, the number one thing they care about is spending time with their grandkids. Well, if we know that data, then why not have them, make sure that we message properly and say, look, you need to get involved for the benefit of your grandkids, that we
Right.
keep this republic going, that they have freedom and opportunity the same way you did.
So Bobby, yeah, I'd like to move on to another thing, and I'd like to ask, how would you improve communications to the community and elected members?
The best way to start to improve that process is, number one, is take the time to identify the people that everybody thinks are the best communicators in the organization, and what are they communicating through that makes them effective. So almost like a best practices of sort, you want to try to find the people that that are extremely effective with their method, as well as the way they lay out the information to who's involved. And so that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is, go interview the people that are getting the information. Like, has that ever been done? Like, go talk to the PCs and be like, look, what do you need to do your job better? Like, what information would you like to see consistently? And, in terms of the people in the community, what would make them want to get more involved? What metrics do they care about? Or what stories or type of work that we're doing gets them excited to get involved? I don't know if any of that's being done. I haven't seen it, and I sure as heck know that nobody's ever knocked on my door to ask me that. Go ahead.
Okay, let's see. Let's see if I've got another one. Does anyone else have an extra question? I'm scrolling back, looking to see if there's something we haven't covered. How does your work experience fit this job? I think you kind of covered that. Let's see. How about we go to the gallery? Does anybody else have some questions we could answer? Oh, wait, here, I have another one. Do you think that that Kane County Republicans should be ambiguous about our core Republican principles?
Absolutely not. I think that there's some issues, there's a spectrum that people will disagree on, which is, how much should we cut taxes? Like, I think we should cut federal government by over 50%. Now, some other Republicans might think, okay, well, let's start at 10 or 15. And then if somebody says, you know what, the government should go a little bit bigger, we're not getting enough out of government, they're not a Republican. Let's cut to the chase. We should sign a pledge not to increase taxes, period. And I think that this is why this has gotten so out of line. You look at the mortgage market as a perfect example. the ratio should be 28-20. They look at your debt ratio, and if you can't afford that, you don't get the house, right? You can't get a mortgage on a house. Well, as a nation, we should cap the amount of grab the government takes of our cash, and we should stick by it. If the average person only needs 5% of their budget to stay alive through food, 5 to 7%, why the hell are we giving the government 25 cents, 23 cents on the federal level alone? And so, that's one example. But then, I had a joke, and I'm serious about it as well, is why is any law on the books in the United States longer and has more words than the U.S. Constitution with all of its amendments? No law on the books should ever be longer than that, as far as I'm concerned. If the rule book that governs everything is 7,000 to 8,000 words, what the hell are we doing passing a 2,000-page document that nobody's ever going to read?
Okay, I got another one here from, I think that's you, Linda. What aggressive fundraising will you activate, and how will money be allocated in Kane or prioritized? Will money be raised to directly help campaigns?
Okay, so there's a couple things with regards to raising money. The way I look at it, there's a couple different buckets. Number one, as to properly run as an organization, we need a certain minimum amount of income, so to speak, coming in just to turn the lights on. And I think that number is probably 10 to 20,000 a month to properly function with mailings, to have some staff, to have people that are involved on maybe doing the things to go and get out in the community and raise additional money for the values and beliefs. We're basically selling a product, and we're selling a service to people. Our service is insurance against government, and this is the way I look at it. If over the next 10 years Democrats get in, and the average person in Kane County has to pay an extra $3,000, $4,000 a year, they're out 40 G's minimum, and it's only going to go up. So should they insure that risk? And my attitude is yes. They should pay a 1% premium at a minimum, or $400 a year, to help insure against that risk. Part of our job as the insurance company of their values and beliefs is to back people that actually fight for those rights. And so so raising the money to have the infrastructure to deal with that is one piece. And there's a way to market the message to get people involved and do auto pays on a monthly basis. The second piece is on the candidate side. So let's just say, for example, there's somebody in St. Charles who really cares about the Second Amendment. And we have 15 candidates that are kind of in the docket. They're on deck. And there's one that's really good at articulating their case and has a really good chance of winning. And the person comes to the party and says, "Look, I want to donate $5,000, but I want 80% of that money to go on this candidate because that's my most important issue." And so our job as the portfolio managers of sorts of values, we're a portfolio manager of values for the party, is to make sure that the money that people give goes toward the needs and wants that they gave the money to. And there's a piece where we have to say, look, you really need to help us ensure all your rights, but then we understand that you want to also support certain rights that will benefit you a little more than other people that don't care about the Second Amendment. If people care about a different issue and they're going to complain that we're spending more money on the Second Amendment, put your own checkbook up or go find people that agree with you on that issue. But I think taking an approach to align the money that's coming in with the people that are giving it and showing them a transparency to how that money is being spent is what's going to just continue to get more money in the door when people know that we're serious about executing on that.
Okay, excellent. I got another question. We have two that actually came in. So how do you personally plan to gather ideas and feedback from all the PCs? I think you kind of answered this a little bit, but go ahead and you can elaborate.
Well, obviously, given the circumstances, over the past 3 weeks, and Patrick and maybe some of the other team could speak to this, but and I know my wife can definitely speak to it, but if we weren't under this lockdown under Pritzker, I would have made an effort to see every single person that's a PC. And I would have tried to set it up from one person to the next and go talk to them all in person. I think that that's underestimated of what that is worth, to actually meet with somebody and talk to them versus just talking to them on the phone or even through this. This is something we have no choice about. So one of the ways I would intend to do it is look at the people that, right now what I've been doing is I've been gathering notes of the past few weeks, past month, of who are the go-to leaders in the organization. Who do people speak highly of, and who gets stuff done? And so I would start with the obvious question, which is, okay, these are people that are trying to do things, and what's holding them back? Why haven't they been able to execute? And find out if there's very small roadblocks that are keeping them from executing. Then I would kind of work down the chain, but simultaneously, while I identify the people that are in that top tier, so to speak, I would also identify the people that have checked out, and try to do my best to identify those. And I would ask all the chairs of each township to say, hey, who's not showing up? Who's not coming to the meetings? And a lot of people might be like, oh man, you don't tell him because he's going to try to get rid of them. And absolutely not. If somebody's not coming to the meeting, I'm going to call them and I'm going to be like, look, are you going through a personal situation, or is there something that you don't think the meetings are effective? Why aren't you coming? What are we doing wrong as an organization? Why aren't you more excited and motivated? And is there something we can do to fix that? You got to ask people to come back that stopped coming. A re-engagement campaign of sorts. If people were if people before used to come in, and then they just disappeared, we need to understand why. And I don't know if anybody ever calls anybody who disappears, but I would absolutely try to call the people that left and try to identify that. Patrick, real quick, there's another colleague that worked with me that just logged on, and I met him. Yeah, Christopher Recker, and I went to graduate school with him, and we worked together at Rothschild as well as UBS O'Connor, and he's a chief investment officer of a firm. So, Chris, with that, if you don't mind, kind of speaking to what your thoughts about me are in various capacities that you've known me. Is he there?
I see him there, but I don't see his microphone.
Okay.
Let's see.
Okay, well, I'll just keep answering questions until he comes on,
Okay.
because he said he might be late.
I'm going to drop you off and then see if you can come back in again in your microphone.
Okay.
Okay. Hopefully you can call. You might have to call through the dial-in, but we do have another question here that was from Mike. How much time do you estimate you will put in to run the Republican Central Committee?
Say that one more time. How much time?
How much time do you estimate you'll put in weekly to run the KRCC?
I think it's going to be at least 20 hours at a minimum, based on where we are right now and what needs to get done. And obviously, I wouldn't want to do that like into perpetuity, because then something's not working. If I still have to keep doing that much work every week to kind of get these systems in place, then the systems aren't working with who we have. But I think that 20 hours, if it's done, if the time is spent productively, it can leave a huge impact. Because everything I do is I try to attempt to scale. I don't like to spend my time doing anything that can't be rolled out across an organization or across capital, because that's just not the way my mind thinks. I don't like to start projects and there's no. It's something that I'm gonna do it and then it just dies on the vine and I move on. That's not my approach to doing things. I kind of want to see it as an investment. I put it in place. If it's not working, I'll kill it fast if it's a bad idea, but I'll try to find another one to plant. And then, and I guess imagine what this party is going to look like if if some of these things that I've been bringing up the past 3 weeks, if they don't get implemented, or if we really don't execute, or if somebody who you put in isn't going to go and try to talk to everybody across Kane County and actively engage in the leaders as well as the membership, what does that world look like if you don't train more people to pick up their game and get more involved, as well as quadruple the number of PCs? It's going to be a world in which this party could be either extremely relevant, and we've fought back all the people leaving the city of Chicago and trying to take over this whole area with larger government, more spending, more taxes, or it could be a template for the rest of the state, and how we manage that, absolutely critical to what people think about the Republican Party, not just in Kane County, but whenever they leave the Republican Party or leave Kane County and go to a different part of the state. So, I think I can leave a big dent in this problem. If I'm selected to lead, and I appreciate your vote and your confidence if you decide to vote for me, and if you think that the status quo is fine, I'm still going to be involved, but it's not going to be 20 hours a week. I'm going to realistically, I'm not going to overpromise and underdeliver. I'll probably spend 5 hours a week helping the Republican Party, because I need to be sure that when I spend my time and energy away from my family, that it's going to leave a mark. Otherwise, I'm not interested in putting in too much time into something.
Well, I think that's everything. I don't know if anybody has any feedback for us. Go ahead and type something in the chat window if you think this was a good town hall. If there's anything we can improve on, if you want to do another one of these before the convention, I'd like to open it up and let people know that we will be glad to do this testing with other people who haven't been in, so that they can be ready for the convention tomorrow. And if you need help, you can call me and I'll get you, me or Gary. Gary, you'd be able to help out also? Hey, Gary?
Of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. So yeah, so either of us will help you get into the convention, but everybody here, it's kind of like preaching to the choir. So you guys all made it in. So thanks again, everybody. If you have any questions, my phone numbers are on the emails, and very, very good. I look forward to working with everybody in the next term. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks.